Welcome to my kitchen. I'm Steve, and in this episode of Cooking with Love, I'm going to show you how to make traditional Italian bread. There's nothing more appetizing than the smell of bread baking in the oven. Italian bread is a little bit savory. It has a thin, light crust and a soft center. The center is designed for mopping up the extra gravy on your plate after a meal. Let's get started. There's only a few ingredients needed to make the Italian bread. First, we're going to need some warm water. We have some salt, some sugar, yeast, olive oil, and then bread flour. We want to make sure that we're going to be using bread flour, not all-purpose flour. The bread flour has a higher protein content and it allows the bread to make a nicer crust. Now, the traditional way of making Italian bread is to combine all your ingredients into a bowl, mix it by hand until it comes together, and then knead it by hand for 8 to 10 minutes. It's a lot of work, and I like to take the more modern, convenient way of doing that. So I'm going to be using a stand mixer, and it's going to be fitted with the dough hook. So we're going to add our warm water into the bowl. Then we add the yeast and allow the yeast to dissolve. And I'm just going to give that a stir. Our yeast is fully dissolved. Next, we're going to be adding the sugar, the salt, and the olive oil. We're also going to be adding 3 cups of our flour, and we're going to mix this until it's combined well. As it mixes, you want to make sure you take a spatula and scrape the sides of the bowl to make sure that you're getting the flour off of the sides and that it gets incorporated into the mix. After the dough is well combined, we're going to add the remaining flour and we're going to put it on medium speed and allow it to knead for about 8 minutes. All right, our dough has kneaded for about the 8 minutes. You may find, like my machine, that it starts to struggle after a few minutes because the dough is pretty stiff. What you can do is just turn down the speed a little bit and that'll help it get through the full knead. You really do want to knead it for about 8 minutes. So we're going to take our wooden cutting board and I'm going to flour it. And I'm going to turn the dough out on the board. And we're just going to knead it for a few minutes just to bring it together, make sure it's smooth and elastic. But the machine has already done most of the kneading for us, so this really doesn't take too much. All right. We form it into a ball, and then we're going to place the ball of dough into a bowl that already has been greased with olive oil. So we're going to just turn the dough and make sure that it's coated well with the olive oil. Then we're going to cover it with plastic wrap and place it in a warm place to rise for an hour to an hour and a half. Our dough has been rising for 1.5 hours now. And as you can see, it's more than doubled in size. We're going to just gently deflate it and transfer it to a floured board. And now we're going to divide this in half. And each half will make 1 loaf. So some more flour. And we're just going to roll this out into a roughly rectangular shape. And now we're going to tightly roll this into a loaf. We're going to pinch the ends closed and pinch the sides. And we're going to place it the seam side down on a baking tray and allow it to rise again. Now at this point I had turned on my oven to preheat it to 425 degrees. Before I turn the oven on to preheat, I place a pizza or baking stone in the middle rack position, and I place a metal tin on the very bottom rack. If you don't have a pizza stone, you could use an inverted baking sheet. All right, here's our dough formed into 2 loaves. We're just going to cover them loosely with a clean towel and allow these to rise for about 45 minutes while our oven is preheating. All right, our bread has been rising in a warm place for about 45 minutes. You're going to use a sharp knife or a razor, and you're going to make 3 slits on the top of each loaf. And we're going to get these into the oven. We're going to place our bread on top of the pizza stone. And we're going to fill the metal tin with some water. The water is hot right from the kettle. Now we're going to check this in 20 minutes. I checked these after 20 minutes. I decided to give them an extra 5 minutes. So it's 25 minutes total. And you can hear that it does sound hollow. So these are ready. I transferred the bread to a cooling rack, and I'm going to allow it to cool for about 15 minutes or so. Our bread has been cooling for about 15 minutes now, so it's much cooler to the touch. We're going to do a little taste test. Hopefully you could hear how crunchy that crust is. The inside is very soft. The crust is nice and light. I think it came out really, really well. I can't wait to serve it to my family. I know they're going to taste the love that it was cooked with.